Once the anterior ethmoidectomy is done, the last step is to do a frontal sinusotomy. So in this scenario, you can see a big agar cell is there. So now I am going behind the agar cell to remove the posterior wall of the agar cell. Then once you remove the posterior wall of the agar cell, then you see the frontal sinus drainage pathway. So now this is again otherwise called as uncapping the egg. See now what, gently you take a ball probe and go behind the posterior wall of the agar cell and remove the cell from posterior to anterior. So never do it blindly. See now you see the posterior most wall part of the agar cell is removed, then you are able to see the frontal sinus. So most of the times it is the cells that are in the frontal drainage pathway which will dictate the what type of drainage the patient has. So CT scan is the most important thing we need to study. And now I am removing the part of the frontal process of the maxilla or the anterior wall of the agar cell. See, I am removing the Kerrison punch here to remove the tough bone that is a frontal process of the maxilla. So now I am taking the curette and removing the last bit of bone, the posterior wall of the agar and now you are able to see the frontal sinus very clearly once you do this step. So now once the frontal sinus is identified, don't try to traumatize the frontal drainage pathway or frontal recess, which will lead to iatrogenic frontal sinusitis if you do too much of meddling in the frontal recess area. Just exposing the frontal recess will be sufficient for a minimal pathology. Unless the more pathology is there, don't try to do much of the dissection in the. So now once I remove identify the frontal drainage pathway, so next step is to identify the anterior ethmoidal artery. Anterior ethmoidal artery forms one of the boundaries for the frontal sinus.